When I bought my first 4RT, I was a little bit, I wasn't sure how to replace oil and oil filter, and obviously I was asking colleagues how to do it, and then I figured out, you know what, wait a second, maybe I can help you as well, and then show you that it's actually not a scary job. So I'm showing basically the oils which I'm using. It's a Tamper Bellray 10W30, and the wrenches which I'm using. The most important is a 12 millimeters socket, 8 millimeters, and Allen key. Plus, I'm using obviously torque wrenches, and I buy the seals, the two O-rings, and then it's a paper seal which is going under the case cover. I'm using a file to file up a little bit the ridge, or it's like a collar actually on a brand new filter. This filter is old, so don't worry about it. I just basically wanted to show you what I'm using for. So again, torque wrenches, it's a must. Honda, it's very specific with the torque. You want to keep it, and I actually like it. I also have a small magnet. The reason I'm using the magnet is when I take off the cover, and it's an oil filter cover. It's a M6 bolt over there, and sometimes my big fat finger cannot catch this bolt, and it's just going inside, so I'm just retrieving it. So from start, I'm taking off the gear shifter, and this specific one, it's a M6 with the 8 millimeters head. Then I'm taking off the drain bolt, which is M8, and then around the engine cover, it's a magneto actually inside. I'm using 8 millimeters wrench, and I'm using actually the electric one. It's much easier and faster. When I finish this, I'm losing up the plate. Some people take this off the plate, and it's actually a very good idea, but then if you actually have those plates a little bit more thinner, then they change the shape, and it's sometimes quite hard to put them back. So in this particular situation, this is a Mitani plate, a little bit thicker, and I prefer to actually leave it over there. I'm using the mallet to poke around the cover, and hoping that I can save the seal which is under between the cover and then the engine. So I poke a little bit around, move it gently, and then I'm using the end of the mallet to lift it up. And because the bike is on the side, I just flip this over, and here we go, I'm at the engine side. I drained the oil prior to changing it, so obviously this engine shouldn't have a lot of oil left. But when I uncover this magic stuff, I'm taking again the 8 millimeters wrench, taking off the bolt, and this is the oil filter cover. This oil filter cover has two O-rings, one the big one and then the small one. I will show this later on in a movie, but I prefer to have those ones ready to use it. Sometimes those are just basically stretch, and I will show you what you are running into it. To retrieve this filter, I'm using the I call this forceps. Probably you have a different name for it, but I'm just retrieving it, and it's nicely disgusting black color. And I'm showing you that on this ridge over there, on this collar, it's a little bit flatter than on the other side, and I changed this before, and I filed this down a little bit for the easy application to put it back. Don't forget to retrieve a little bit of the spring inside the oil filter place, and what I'm doing, I'm just doing it with a rag. I'm cleaning the residue of the old oil, so I just want to have and keep the oil clean for a long period of time. On the bottom of the of this chamber, you will have like a metal screen, so make sure that you put this screen in the right direction. So you will notice that Honda, it's actually quite specific which way you're putting on. I'm either using a rag, and if I, it's a good idea to check it to see if it's any kind of the metal filing over there. So when I take this off, I usually use either rack or blowgun. So I will use the blowgun as well. Uh, Also, the good idea is I just basically use this time before I clean this to actually give you some other hint. I'm using a little bit of the grease of or oil on a big seal on the case, because this way I will be able to most probably save this seal again for reuse in the future. So I think it's a good idea to just use a little bit, tiny little bit of grease on this paper. Now I'm just giving the like a last finish touch around the engine, making sure that everything is nice and clean. So as you can see, I'm using the file, and then on the top part of the where is the rubber actually, and I'm filing down a little bit this magic color. I lift the plastic cover to make sure that any kind of the residue of the from the shivers, I believe this is what you call, they're not going inside. Then I'm using a little bit of the grease over there, because it will be a pain in the butt if you don't put anything inside, and then you'll try to put the small spring, which is going to just fall, and then you're just going to be a little bit irritated by it. So this way I show you the area I filed down, as you can see the color over there, and then it's a beautiful fit right now. And then the spring is not falling, everything is good. Now I will show you, I have on this filter cover, I have the old O-ring, and very often you can reuse it. You can just basically use a little bit of the screwdriver and then just push this around, because it's just stretched like an old underwear really. So I have a new one, it's ready actually on a table, and I will pretend that I'm playing and I'm trying to really hard to put this over there, and then you can see that the small part of this wheel will be pinch, and then this is absolutely what you would like to avoid. So I'm just trying to show you over there. Right now it's under the magneto, and then I'm trying to reposition, trying to make sure that it's there, and then again I'm showing with the finger that it's sticking out a little bit. So to don't get frustrated, I'm just replacing those O-rings. They are very quick fix. I don't think that they are very expensive. They're between $3 to $4. So I just replace both of them and then have a fresh. I'm specifically using for the engine oil a thumper, Bellray 10W30, and I think this is the recommend actually viscosity. For easy filling up, I'm using a bottle, and obviously I measured this before, and it's a 440 milliliters of oil if you replace the filter. If you don't replace the filter, then it's 410, and then if you for some reason have to split the case and cleaning and all the stuff, and I believe, I don't remember, it's probably show over there later on, but it's much more. So I don't want to confuse you. So with the fresh O-rings, the engine, the filter cover goes very nicely, and it's the rubber, it's not impinged anywhere, which basically it's a very nice fit. It's a fresh fit, so I think it's worth it to have it those two O-rings on the table if you need them. Also, you can fill up the oil right now on the bike. It's actually on the side, or you can just put everything together and put the oil. I think it's better to put the oil and fill up a little bit on the air filter, because before the oil actually reach the air filter later on, the engine may run dry, so I prefer to put a little bit of the oil before I put everything together. I tighten up the bolts first by hand, and then later on I'm using either wrench, and you can go and then go very close to the center. Use it if you don't have a torque wrench, but I prefer to use torque wrench. And then with this M6 bolts, which are 6 millimeters, they call for 10 newtonometers or 7 pounds per foot. A little bit of the oil I'm using on paper, and I'm hoping that next time in 20 hours when I will take it off again, I will use, maybe I will be able to use this paper seal again, who knows. But now I'm just showing you that they are a little bit like metal guides on the engine. I prefer to keep them actually on this side of the engine, not on the cover, because these will help me to align the other parts of the, when I'm putting the cover, it will help me to align everything together. Yes, especially if I don't have a lot of space between the skid plate and then the cover. So making sure that the rubber thingy under the engine, it's not in a way. Now I will put this magic cover. You don't rush, you know, it's just should be a pleasure to work on your bike. Yes, you have enough of stress of work, so it should be a pleasant stuff. Now the very important part is, for me it was actually quite confusing. When I take a look at the manual the first time when I was changing, they were only showing over there 22 Newton meters to tighten up the bolts. The only problem is that those 22 Newton meters, it was for the drain bolt, not for those 8 bolts, which is actually tightening up or securing the cover of the engine. Okay, so please absolutely don't tie down those bolts which I'm showing right now, those 4 long ones which are basically close to the center. And then you can see that the cover case, the case cover has one, it's actually a little bit smaller, so this is where the small bolts goes, and then a little bit longer, this is where the mid-size bolts goes. So I will pretend right now that I'm using the short one in the wrong place, so you can see that it just sinks too much. So then I will put the bigger one, say, yeah, this is the one. And again, I think that the very important part is that you don't want to use the wrench straight away and then tighten up those bolts or any kind of the mechanical tool, because when you destroy it in any bike, the nest of the bolt, you will be in a big trouble. So I use first by hand and then later on tighten up with this electric torque wrench, and I'm tightening up to the point where it's just like a small click, so I don't over tighten, okay, because I don't want to over tighten those bolts and then having problem later on. So as you can see, I'm tightening these up, those bolts, with 10 Newton meters force, and the torque wrench, when you go to the point where it's almost ready, you will feel a little bit click. So don't eat too much steroids before you tighten up those bolts. If you don't have a torque wrench, some people, they just use the regular wrench, but keep it very close to the center. Okay, so this one here, the number 3, this is the drain bolt for the engine oil, as well as on the same side, a little bit more on the right. It's another bolt, exactly the same, and it's a M8 bolt, which is using the torque 22 Newton meters. And then this is another magic torque wrench. I'm using 22. When I using 22, I'm just going around the other 8 bolts, making sure that they still have those 10 Newton meters. So you can see 22 Newton meters, the drain bolt, and 10 Newton meters. It's such a huge difference. Okay, so I'm putting right now the gear shifter, and the way how it actually goes, it's the top of the gear shifter, it's matching the bottom of the Honda encryption on the engine. And this one, it's I'm using the flat range, 8 millimeters, and this one here, it's just basically the fill up plug, so you can fill up with this bottle, for example, over there. Now it's a time to secure the plate, and then first I'm just using the regular wrench, and then when I feel like, hey, it's fairly tight, I will go and then use specific torque, which Honda again calls 22 Newton meters. And to be honest, I like it actually to use torque wrench. It feels like I'm doing a really good job over there. So I hope that this will help you to get over the fear of changing oil with the oil filter in the Montesa. Four strokes are a little bit different than two strokes. Obviously, they are they're more sophisticated than the two strokes, but there are pros and cons of those bikes. So the thing is that with this bike, it's such a good bike and such a good quality bike that I have a pleasure. I'm not working as much as on my other bikes. I don't have to. They just basically not falling apart on me. This is my private opinion, so please, don't take this to your heart and then try to defend your brand. I had betas, four betas, one gas, Sherco, Scorpa, great bikes. All of those bikes are great. They have a pro and cons. But what I'm trying to say is there are also pro and cons between the four-stroke and two-strokes, and I like the four-stroke as well. And I don't have to play with the carburetor. It's a very sophisticated bike. I really like it, enjoy it, and I hope that you enjoyed this movie as well. So take care, and yes, thanks for watching, and hopefully this will help you. Take care, bye.